A creepy Appalachian Mountain story to share. So it's about a man who was 100 years old when he died. Very, very long life. And he was a grandfather to lots of grandkids. These grandkids are adults at this point. And when he got to like age 90, age 95, they were always bantering with him, like, when you going to die, old man? When you going to give us our inheritance? And he'd equally give him the banter back. One day, obviously at the age of 100, he passed away and his whole family was very upset. And when they were sat there reading the will out, they were quite surprised to see that one grandchild in particular would inherit his lake house. Now, this lake house was kind of elusive to the family because some of his kids had gone to it, like back in the 60s and 70s, but it kind of was just shut off after that point and the family never visited it again. His wife died like many, many, many years before him, and his family probably think that he didn't want to go back there because of memories for that. But they were quite surprised to learn that he gave it to one grandchild, and this grandchild, let's call him Albert. Now, Albert was adamant that his granddad left him the lake house because him and his granddad had a really good connection. They would often speak about hunting and hiking, and he knew that his granddad was a very adventurous type. That's why they bought the lake house, and he'd loved getting all the stories from his granddad. So one of the reasons why they think the granddad lived to that age was because how active he was. He'd go fishing, boating, hiking, the lot. But he was also a very, very keen hunter, and this grandchild, Alfred, wanted to be a hunter, so he'd ask his granddad about what caliber he'd use. His granddad would tell him how to skin an animal, how to stake an animal, and all that interesting stuff. But he also liked how his granddad would use funny terms, like he'd say some of them are right slippery bastards, like they'd run and you have to stalk them, and he'd say you have to be the predator and they are the prey, like always. And he just loved his granddad's stories. When he finally got the keys to the guest house, the lake house, he was just so happy, and he was going to invite the whole family to go there, but he thought, no, I'm just going to go there on my own, kind of stake the place out. But also he expected this place to be like very decrepit, falling down, and he wanted to clean the place up first. So his expectations were really, really low, but as he pulled up to the address, he was actually quite surprised because this place was immaculate and it was beautiful, and he was pretty certain that he had the wrong address, but it was the right one. And then he was convinced that maybe his granddad had somebody on the payroll this whole time cleaning up this lake house, because it had a porch that was freshly painted, freshly swept. It had a really long flower bed that had blooming flowers, and the location was just perfection. Mountains in the background, next to the lake, and it was just gorgeous. He walked around the house, and it very clearly hadn't been touched since the 70s. There was a great big fireplace, like marble features, and just, as you can imagine, a 70s log cabin to be. It was just gorgeous, he said. But everything was pretty much bare. There's some camp equipment and some fold-out beds and some old, like, bits and bobs around, but nothing of any interest. There was also no electricity or water turned onto the property, and he didn't know how to do that, so he just thought he'd get himself some of the food that he'd brought with him and just chill out on the porch and just remember his granddad. As he sat there on the porch, his eyes are drawn to the fireplace because there's a great big, like, stag head above the fireplace. And he notices just sat on the mantle is a book. Albert's hoping that it's like a photo album so he can get some memories. And he walks to it and he notices that it's embroidered guest book. And he thinks, oh, people must have stayed here then. That's why it's kept so clean this whole time. Flicking through this book, he's noticing that every single page is full, but these messages aren't typical guest book messages. They're just name and a date, sometimes just name and a month and a year. Every now and then there's a few comments that he's pretty certain is his granddad's handwriting, and that would be like Jennifer Smith, blonde hair, David Cotton, slippery fucker, Marjorie Egg, fast but not fast enough. Like, these comments are pretty sus, but this guy's thinking, some of these messages are written like 40, 50 years ago. The one in particular that stood out to him, David Cotton, said February 6, 1970. And he's like, people were into weird shit back then. Who knows what this guest book actually meant? So he decides to spend the night there. There's no issues. He just really likes his cabin. And as he's driving home, he's thinking, David Cotton, like, why is this name like staying with me? David Cotton. Obviously, in the Appalachian Mountains and many other roads leading to that area, there is no Wi-Fi, there is no signal. So as soon as he stops off at a gas station and he sees that he's got Wi-Fi, he has to just search the name David Cotton because it's circling his head. Doesn't really get anything brought up. Then he types in David Cotton, 1970, Appalachia. And then he sees a couple of news articles archived that pop up that say David Cotton, missing in the Appalachian Mountains, February 1970. And then he remembers his granddad's comment, slippery fucker. And then he remembers the comments that he used to make about the deer he used to hunt. Some of them could be slippery bastards. Is it just a coincidence, or did his granddad have some secrets? I guess there's a lot of Googling of the names that Albert needs to do. If you've got a story you want to share, you know where to email me in my bio.
I don't know about you, but I've always thought traveling carnivals were kind of strange. They show up overnight, stay for a short time, and then just disappear like they were never there. And after what happened in tonight's spooky story, I don't think I ever want to be in one alone after dark. So grab a blanket, maybe a snack, and get settled in for tonight's Midnight Confessions Stories from the Dark. I grew up in a small town where the biggest event of the summer wasn't the 4th of July parade or the county fair. It was the traveling carnival that rolled into town. They always set it up in the same field just outside downtown, and for 1 week every summer, it felt as if the whole town revolved around it. You could smell popcorn and funnel cakes from the grocery store parking lot a block away, and once the sun went down, you could see the Ferris wheel glowing above the trees from almost anywhere in town. Looking back, most of my childhood summers blur together, but the carnival is one of the few things I remember clearly. I even remember a lot of the people who worked there. Most of the workers only came through town for a year or two, but there was one person who came back every single year without fail. The man who operated the carousel. He couldn't have been much older than 30. With neatly combed dark hair, bright blue eyes, and a faded red uniform that looked like it had been washed so many times that it almost turned gray. Every year, he'd greet families with the same polite smile and help little kids onto the horses. While the other kids were excited to see him, I always felt a little uneasy around him and preferred to keep my distance. It also didn't help that unconfirmed rumors were floating around. Like every small town, ours had its urban legends. One of the biggest was that a child disappeared from the carnival every summer. Nobody could ever name any of the missing kids or point to a newspaper article about them. It was just one of those stories that got passed down from one generation of kids to the next. Eventually, I graduated from high school and moved away. Years passed, life got busy, and the carnival slowly became just another childhood memory. Then, last summer, some close friends of mine were going out of town for a few days and asked if I could watch their 7-year-old son, my godson, Stevie. I agreed. On our second day together, Stevie asked if we could go to the carnival. I figured it would be fun for him, and if I were being honest, I liked the idea of seeing the carnival again myself. So, after dinner, we got in the car and drove over. The moment we stepped through the gates, it felt like 20 years had disappeared. The smell of popcorn and fried dough drifted through the warm evening air, and the midway glowed with strings of colorful lights that looked almost exactly the way I remembered them. Even some of the rides hadn't changed. Stevie wanted to stop at practically every game we passed. We spent $20 trying to knock over milk bottles before I finally managed to win him a little green dinosaur that he insisted on carrying under one arm for the rest of the night. For a while, I forgot about all the strangeness surrounding the carnival from when I was a kid. Stevie looked across the midway and pointed. "Can we ride the carousel?" My eyes followed his finger. The carousel sat exactly where it always had, its lights shimmering as it slowly turned. Parents stood around the edge, taking pictures as little kids laughed from the painted horses. I smiled and headed in that direction. As we got closer, my eyes drifted toward the man standing at the control booth. He couldn't have been much older than 30. Neatly combed dark hair, bright blue eyes, a faded red uniform that almost turned gray. He was smiling as he helped a little girl climb onto one of the horses. He looked exactly the same, as I remembered him. He helped Stevie onto a horse. The carousel started moving, the cheerful organ music echoing across the midway as Stevie laughed and waved every time he came back around. I waved back, leaning against the fence as I watched him circle past again. After a few minutes, I realized I was having trouble keeping my eyes open. At first, I figured I was just tired, but the feeling got stronger surprisingly fast. My legs suddenly felt heavy, and I had to grab the fence to steady myself. I blinked a few times, trying to clear my head, but it didn't help. I looked around for somewhere to sit. There was a bench a short distance away, so I made my way towards it as quickly as I could. The last thing I remember seeing was Stevie smiling as the carousel carried him past me. Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, everything was quiet. It took me a few seconds to get my bearings, and suddenly I remembered. Stevie. I shot upright so fast that I nearly lost my balance. The midway looked completely different now. Most of the lights had been turned off, leaving only a handful glowing in the distance. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. It was 12:43 a.m. My stomach dropped. I'd been asleep for hours. I immediately looked toward the carousel. It wasn't moving anymore, and there wasn't anyone standing around it either. Stevie, I called. No response. I started walking through the midway, calling his name louder each time. I told myself not to panic. Maybe carnival security had found him wandering around alone and took him to the front gate to wait for whoever he was with. By the time I reached the entrance, I was sprinting. But the ticket booths were closed, and the parking lot beyond them was empty. Not a single employee in sight. Just as I pulled my phone out to call the police, I heard a faint sound of carousel music and children laughing, drifting across the empty midway. I looked up and saw the carousel was moving. It was the only ride in the entire carnival with its lights on. I ran towards it, praying that Stevie was somewhere nearby. By the time I reached the carousel, it had almost completed another full rotation. The horses were moving up and down, but there wasn't anyone riding them. I kept shouting Stevie's name until I heard his voice from somewhere deeper inside the carnival. I'm over here! I spun toward the sound and took off running. Stevie! I yelled again. This time, his voice came from a different direction. I stopped. It was impossible. A second ago, he'd been somewhere behind the carousel. Now he sounded like he was on the opposite side of the midway. Then I was flooded with the sound of children laughing from every direction. Just as suddenly as it started, the laughter stopped. The carnival went completely silent again. Stevie was sitting on one of the painted horses, clutching his little green dinosaur against his chest. Relief hit me so hard, my knees almost gave out. I ran over and pulled him into a hug before he even had the chance to climb down. Where were you? I asked. I've been looking everywhere for you. He looked at me like I'd asked a strange question. I was right here with the other kids. What other kids? The ones on the carousel. I looked over my shoulder, where the control booth was in view. The carousel operator was standing exactly where he'd been earlier that evening, watching us. He still wore the same polite smile. I considered walking over and punching him in the face. What kind of weirdo was he? Before I could take a step, he spoke. I hope he enjoyed the ride. His voice was calm and friendly, just like I remembered. I looked back at Stevie and then at the carousel. When I turned toward the operator again, he was gone. I grabbed Stevie's hand and told him we were leaving. He looked disappointed, but I didn't get to finish. Finish what? The last ride. He glanced back toward the carousel. They said I can come back next summer. I felt my grip tighten around his hand. Who said that? Stevie looked at me like the answer was obvious. The other kids. Then, after a brief pause, he added quietly, they said they only get visitors once a year. So, do you think the town's old rumor was true? Let me know if you've ever had a weird experience at a carnival or maybe a state fair. Those places always creep me out. If you love spooky stories, be sure to follow for more Midnight Confessions.
Do you guys want to hear a scary story? Quick context here, I used to babysit for an extremely haunted house. There was two girls in the house, the older one I called Luna, the younger one I called Aura, for protection of their own names. Luna had an imaginary friend named Pete who was actually a demonic entity, and there was other entities in the house, several of them. Imagine you go to tuck a child in at night, and except for tucking the child, you accidentally tuck in something else that's not in this world. I was babysitting one night, and I don't really remember start to finish the chaoticness of the night and everything that had happened, but I do remember it was kind of a more high tension night. Activity was happening at home, the girls weren't in the best mood, they were tired, everyone was cranky, you know. And Luna, the oldest one, who was very attached to Pete, her imaginary friend, demon, she was not wanting to go sleep in her room, in her sister's room. She really wanted to stay on the couch. Now for me, at the time I'm a teenager, I let a lot of that slide, because if she wants to sleep on the couch and she's hell bent on sleeping there, who am I to tell her she can't? You know, if it's gonna be meltdown of the year. So I would let her sleep on the couch often. And I had tucked in Aura, the younger one. She was sleeping peacefully for probably about an hour before Luna was getting into bed. And gotta remember, Luna doesn't want to go to bed. She wants to keep playing with Pete. So I finally get Luna to go in her room, and I leave their doors open and everything. I have the monitors up, even though they weren't baby monitors, but they had like little, like in the corner of the room, you know, kind of an eagle's view, just so you could check on the kids and stuff with little tablets, the old school ones. So I am, after the girls are sleeping, I'm in the kitchen. Now the kitchen it's one like giant room with the kitchen and the living room basically. So the kitchen's over here, the living room is over here, big area. And I remember I was doing the dishes, cleaning up after the night, picking up after little crafts we were doing, small stuff, you know, babysitter duties. And I heard a rustling sound over on the couch. Sounded like someone was like tucking into bed. And I look over, and I can't see anything because the couch had a back to it, if that makes sense. If someone was laying down, you couldn't see it over the back. So I walk over to the couch, and there's Luna. She's curled up in a ball. I can just see her little body underneath the blanket. And I always have a lot of grace, so I'm trying to, you know, do this in a graceful manner and not get upset. And I'm like, babe, I told you to go to bed. Like, how many times do we have to go over this? And it's just silent under the blanket. She's not saying a word. I can't even barely hear, like, breathing. And I'm a little confused. So I rub my hand on the back of the blanket, like from what I would assume would be her back, and it feels different. It feels hard, kind of bony and cold underneath. Quick location change, but bony, hard. And I pull my hand away, because as I'm going to feel, you know, like rub her back and be like, okay, like, just give you a minute. It's hard to describe, but something was very off. I'm slowly backing away, like keeping my eye on this form underneath the blanket, real slowly backing away. And I'm backing away into the kitchen where the monitors are, and I look at the monitor, and Luna is still asleep in her room. Luna is not on the couch. And as I'm trying to muster the strength, because I kept my eye on the area, right? But then I kind of lost sight of it over the back end of the couch. As I'm looking at the monitor, I'm looking up, and I'm just confused. Then I walk a couple steps forward, see over the edge of the couch, the blanket is now flat. And when I tell you guys, there was a visible, like, body underneath this blanket before. And I felt it with my hand, but it didn't feel like a human being. It didn't feel like an animal. It didn't feel like anything. It was so hard to explain what I felt under that blanket. And I immediately, like I always did, I was psycho, always checking on the girls because of everything happening in the home. Go in person, not, you know, on the monitor looking. I go in both the rooms. They're both sleeping peacefully. I'm taking a breather right outside the room. And as I'm just sitting there outside the room, I hear, "Where'd you go?" Coming from the other side of the house, in the living room, kitchen area. But the voice itself was very deep. It sounded like a very deep man's voice, but also disembodied slightly. Pete's voice was very disturbing, and I knew it was him. And in that moment, I knew that I had tucked Pete into bed. That's all I have for now. Bye, guys.
A guy named Jason sent me a message, and he said, I feel like I'm going crazy and living in a fever dream because I dated a person for 3 years and no one remembers my ex besides me. So he said this happened in 2022 when he started dating Marcus, his ex. He had just moved to Pembroke Pines, Florida, and he was 24 years old. He went to, I'm not sure if it was a house party or if it was a bar. It wasn't very clear from the email, but he said that he was outside at this little backyard spot and he saw Marcus leaned up against a fence, and Marcus wasn't talking to anyone, but he was wearing a dark black hoodie. And he said that stood out to him because it was very humid outside. And he was like, why is this man wearing a hoodie? But he was attracted to him. And Marcus had tattoos that were sort of peeking out of his sleeves. And one in particular that Jason remembered noticing right off the bat was this weird half moon with some strange little lines going through it. But he makes his way over to Marcus and they start talking and they hit it off. They felt like they had known each other for years and they spent hours that night just talking. And from there, everything moved very fast. Marcus told Jason that he worked in logistics, though he was very vague about what exactly he did, and he worked a lot. But he still treated Jason very well. He would often show up at his apartment with Cuban coffees or with snacks and things that he had made in his own kitchen, and he just was very good to Jason. And Jason had even mentioned to him one time that he really didn't like his birthday because his family had really treated it like it was never a big deal. And so Marcus made it a point to plan an entire little vacation for them. And he took him to Key West and they stayed for the weekend, and there was an insane tropical storm that they got caught in on the way, and it was just this whole big thing. They decided to pack up their trip early and head back to Pembroke Pines. And on the way back, it was still storming, and Marcus turned to Jason and said, look, it's like the storm is following us. And Jason remembers thinking it was like romantic even at the time, but now he doesn't think so much. Because one thing he noticed was that Marcus's mood would shift anytime it stormed or when the weather was particularly bad. Jason said they fought like normal couples, like most people do, but he came to expect that Marcus would be in a bad mood whenever a storm was coming. It was just a strange pattern that he noticed. But despite their arguments, Marcus always found a way to pull Jason back in, and he said he just felt very safe in general despite his moodiness. Jason and Marcus broke up in early 2025. He said there wasn't like a screaming match or anything like that. It was just exhaustion. They had been fighting so much up until that point that there was just like no fight left in either of them. And Marcus told Jason that he had to figure some stuff out up north, whatever that meant. And Jason was pretty devastated, but he let him go. And he said he spent a few weeks crying and trying to piece his life back together. There was a brief period where Marcus seemed to come back, at least in text, and they were texting for a few weeks, but then it fizzled out. And Jason was devastated all over again. He was like, I cannot do this back and forth. And he ultimately deleted all the texts, all the pictures that they had together. He got rid of everything except for one of Marcus's hoodies. He said eventually he got over his sadness because life kept moving, and he tried to just focus on his life and what he was doing at the time and making content and his job and, you know, dating casually. And that was that until last month. He was at his parents' in Pembroke Pines. He said his family always gets together for Sunday dinner, and they were just doing their usual thing. And it was his parents, his sister, and his aunt. And they were all talking and hanging out on the back porch after dinner. I'm not sure the context of the conversation that the family was having when Marcus's name came up, but Jason says, oh, do you guys remember when Marcus and I went to the Keys and we got caught in that insane storm? And nobody remembers this happening. He was like, no, I went for my birthday with my ex. Like, you guys remember Marcus? And his mom is like, who's Marcus? And Jason just stared at them because he's like, he's been over here like multiple times. He fixed Dad's grill on the 4th of July. He came for Christmas in like 2023. He sat in that chair, and he points to the chair that they're sitting around. And his dad is like, no, I don't remember a Marcus. I remember your boyfriend from college, Alex. And I remember that other guy that you brought around a couple of times, but nobody for the last 3 years. And then his sister pipes up and she's like, yeah, if you dated someone named Marcus, I would remember. Like, I'm always watching your story. And like, she's like, I would remember something about this situation. Even his aunt pipes up and she's like, you dated this person for 3 years, like, and didn't bring them around. Like, we would remember. Like, that doesn't sound like you at all. And he's like, what are you guys talking about? And so he pulls up his phone, and even though he deleted the photos, he's like, I still had his number. So he looks at his number and the contact is gone. He started looking through everything on his phone, like his notes apps, like anything to prove that Marcus existed. And then when he got home, he tore through his closet looking for the hoodie that he kept, and that was gone as well. He said it feels like the universe deleted 3 years of his life, and none of his friends remember Marcus either. And he's not sure if Marcus was ever really real, but he says he has no history of mental illness. There's nothing to indicate that he would have made this entire thing up. So he's very confused. He'll be seeing the comments. Let him know what you think.
I literally can't believe out of all the scary stories I tell you guys, I have never told you the story of what happened to us when we went to this plantation. Back in New Jersey where I grew up, me and my old friend Alexis, we would always go to our friend Jay's house, who lived on this huge plantation. It was so many acres. It was a huge mansion, and around the mansion was a bunch of smaller, what they called, slave houses. Well, our friend Jay lived in one of those slave houses, and obviously, you know, there was a lot of like bad energy there and like spirits there and whatever. We would see stuff, we would hear stuff. And one night we decided to play what we called Manhunt. Does anyone remember that game, Manhunt? Usually Manhunt is played outside in the woods, but this time we played where we went and hid in the house. I remember that up in this house, like we would always go up to the attic because we would always hear these weird creepy noises up there. And up in this attic, there was these toys, like old style toys from, I don't even know what generation, but guys, there was always this one toy that creeped us out so much. It was like one of those things with the monkeys, and it had the, you know, those things that they clang together. Me and Jay decided like, hey, everyone's scared of this attic, so why don't we go up there and we can hide up there because we know we're not gonna get found. Well, as we're hiding up there, we start hearing these weird noises like off into the dark, and no, we didn't have a flashlight. But once we started hearing the noises, we both looked at each other and we were like, all right, shh, like what the hell is that? And as we started listening more, you heard something like clanking together. Obviously at that point we got so scared that we started running down the steps, and then they found us because we were screaming. And they asked us like, what are you guys screaming about? And we're freaking out trying to tell them like, there's a toy up there that's going off and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, you guys are just bugging out. We're like, no, we're not bugging out. Like this really happened, guys. Like, and they start messing with us. So me and Jay start to go up the attic steps so we can show them. And obviously at that point, it wasn't making the noises anymore. But as we go up the steps, they mess with us and slam the door behind us. So the door shuts. So at that point, we both start freaking out and we turn around and go back down the steps to try and get out the door. The door is locked. And we're banging on the door and it won't open. And then next thing you know, all you hear is the from that monkey clanking those metal things together. It came from that toy. Me and Jay start screaming, pounding on the door. Open the door, let us out, let us out. And then they finally opened the door and it was like a scene from a movie. We flew out onto the floor on top of each other and we're yelling at them, why did you guys lock the door? That monkey started going off. And they're like, what are you talking about? We didn't even shut the door. But now we kind of get into an argument with them. We're like, you're lying. You guys shut the door and you locked it on us. And they're like, guys, we didn't even shut the door. But I promise you to this day, that monkey went off. That monkey toy went off and it scared the living hell out of all of us. And if you guys have any similar stories with like haunted toys and such, put them down in the comments. I would love to read them and follow for more crazy stories in my life.
The person that sent me the story called it Creepy Parts Working the Graveyard Shift at a Nursing Home. I love stories from like overnight nursing homes, hospitals, and stuff like that. There's always so good. Hi, Matrix. Hi. I work as a CNA in a nursing home. I have been working in healthcare for 5 years, but a CNA for 2. I've always worked the graveyard shift as a CNA. When you work healthcare, no matter the time of day, there will be odd things afoot, but they pick up once the late night shift begins. I have heard my name called. I've been poked with a cold finger and seen many shadows and odd noises. Now this night was especially just off. I work at 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and when I walked into work that day, the vibe was just off. The energy was weird. At around 11:30 p.m., one of my residents pushed her call light, which was odd because she never hits her call light in the night. I go in to check on her and she's sitting on the side of her bed awake. She says to me, "I'm not sure what just happened. I heard my mom screaming and saw her walk across my room. I looked over at the corner and I saw a tall, thin man. That's when I sat up because I was scared. I looked back and he was gone." I told her that's really creepy, and she brought up the time that she was talking to her sister and insisted that she was in the room. I was there that time as well. Both her mom and her sister have both passed. It gave me full body chills. Later that night, one of my coworkers and I were coming back inside from a smoke break and we were passing the registration desk and one of the walkie-talkies was going off. My coworker shrugged it off and said that it was the weather machine. I told her, "No, dude, that's the walkie-talkie." We stood there for a few minutes and sure enough, you could hear a voice trying to come through. It went back to static and stopped. Just 10 minutes after this, I was walking down my hall and my AirPod beeped. This has never happened and it freaked me out. I went to the nursing station and I swear I heard a music box going off. I brushed it off and continued with my 3 a.m. rounds. I was on a different hall at this point, and I was walking to answer a call light and noticed one of the residents sitting in her wheelchair in the doorway. After everything going on, I jumped and screamed. Oh, because you got startled by the person sitting there. And I apologized to her for the reaction. I asked her why she was up so early, and she tells me, "Because I heard scratching on my window." I, at this point, was done. When day shift came, I told them all the craziness that had happened and how the lady saw the tall, thin man in the corner of her room. She then tells me, yeah, a lot of people have talked about seeing a tall, skinny man in a top hat and have passed not that long after. Working the night shift is crazy, but as creepy as it is, I'm totally here for it. Have a good day, Auntie. Okay, that was like a lot of things that happened to you in a very short period of time, just in one little night. I do believe that she was seeing her mom and her sister who had passed because she was probably close to death. I'm assuming. I don't know if she passed. You didn't say, but that's normally what happens when people are close to death. They start to see their loved ones, because I think that their loved ones are kind of coming. They're like, they're close to the veil, and their loved ones are like kind of coming through to be like, hey, we're going to go now, to kind of guide them home and make them feel safe. I also have heard, so obviously we know about the Hat Man, right? Everybody knows about the Hat Man. If you don't know about the Hat Man, he's like the most famous sleep paralysis demon. He's incredibly tall, all black, featureless, can't see no facial features, sometimes, a lot of times, red eyes, wearing a hat. Okay. They're just watchers. The Hat Man, whatever, they just seem to watch. They're not ever doing anything. But I have heard this a lot, that in a lot of settings like this, in nursing homes and hospitals, that right when after someone, a resident or whoever, sees the Hat Man, not long after they pass away. So that gets me thinking, like, why are some people seeing the Hat Man while they're sleeping in their room or just like in their house and they're fine, but then people in like nursing homes and stuff like that are not, and they see the Hat Man and they pass? I wonder if it's a different environment. Maybe it's because those people are close to passing and they're seeing kind of through the veil and they're seeing kind of through, dimensions or whatever you want to say. And so they're seeing the Hat Men more. Maybe Hat Men are around watching us literally all the time. And we didn't even know, we don't even see them, but sometimes people can see them depending on different circumstances. Maybe that's it. What do you guys think? I don't know, but I love these stories. If anybody else works in like a hospital or nursing home overnight and has any creepy stories, please send them in. I love you. Okay. Thanks for sharing. Bye.
All right, so just imagine that you're driving on a lonely country road. It's late, it's midnight, it's dark outside, and a 7-foot tall, huge giant creature with glowing red eyes suddenly appears right in front of you. And that's exactly what happened to two different couples on November 16th of 1966. This happened in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. So Linda and Robert Scarberry were out with their friends, Steve and Mary Mallet. They were just out for like a late night, like little outing. They happened to be driving by like this big power plant area, and all of a sudden they saw what they described to be like this man-shaped creature, something sort of thing. Something along the lines of like a man-bird creature. But it was just standing in the middle of the road, and its eyes were glowing like freaking bicycle reflectors. Naturally, they floored it and got the fuck out of there. But the creature unfurled like 10-foot-long wings and chased after them, chasing their car at over 100 miles an hour on back roads. A couple later described how it like rose up like a freaking helicopter. No matter how fast they went, this thing was always keeping pace with them. They were hysterical by the time they got back to town and told the sheriff. Very next day, the headline of the Point Pleasant newspaper read, "Couples see man-sized creature thing something." And as you would expect, that initial report unleashed a frenzy. And for years after that, dozens of people around Point Pleasant area were like reporting sights of this Mothman creature. This thing was seen all the time, like lurking over people's homes, even taking family pets. There's one story about this man's German Shepherd who disappeared after the guy saw literally two glowing red eyes off in the distance, like in his backyard. His dog completely gone after this. And this truly became part of Appalachia's lore, I think in like 1967 when this bridge collapsed in Point Pleasant, and they said that they had seen Mothman right up on the bridge before it collapsed. That's like one of the things that kind of spread his name throughout Appalachia at first. Basically, that's how like the legend of Mothman came to be. And honestly, with the things that I've seen in Appalachia growing up here, I believe it. There's almost nothing I won't believe after living out here. West Virginia hosts way more than just that one scary cryptid. Rewind a bit to 1952 in the flatwoods of West Virginia. On September 12th of 1952, there were these two young brothers who saw like this big fiery object fly across the sky and a seemingly like crash land up towards the mountain range. And this was just outside their village, so it was like within their means to walk to. And of course, being two young boys, they were very adventurous and they wanted to go see, so they went to go see. But what they see, they wish they had not seen. But they didn't want to go by themselves, so they brought their mothers with them as well as two other friends. So this posse goes on to investigate. Might I add, there was a dog too. Once they got to the site, one of the boys' flashlights illuminated something that was so utterly grotesque and out of this world that none of them had ever seen in their lives. Honestly, something that would scar them for the rest of their lives. They all came face to face with this 10-foot tall figure with a blood red face and greenish skin. It said that the creature's head was like a spade or like an ace of hearts, almost like a hood, and it had these glowing orangey eyes and claw-like hands, and it emitted this really nauseating smell. Smell was so nauseating that some of them were gagging and throwing up. So horrific, in fact, that some of the kids even wet themselves and the dog was whimpering and crying. Their eyes were burning. Obviously, the group fled for their lives as fast as they could back through the woods the way that they came. They got back and they told everybody they were convinced that they had seen this like Frankenstein-like creature off in the distance of the woods, like out beyond the village. And then this hit the local news, and then it became nationwide news. And this actually later became to be known as one of the most famous UFO encounters of this era, that era, I should say. Even to this day, that tiny town still proudly proclaims itself as being the home of the green monster. They even have this like cute little Flatwoods monster museum. Leave it to humans to monetize off of your local nightmare, right? But yeah, crazy things happen out in these hills. There's absolutely eyes out there that we can't see watching us.
A series of spooky stories, anonymous submission. I've been listening to your TikToks for a while and figured out of all the spooky cryptid encounters me and my family had encountered, it was time for me to share one. I'm going to try and remain as anonymous as possible because I've worked very hard to mask my energy from the paranormal and I do not want this to come back to me. This is technically my dad's story, but I'll explain why I'm telling it and why it's so much scarier being my dad's story. My family has lived in northern Appalachia all of my life. Oh, you know it's about to be a good one. So cryptids and creatures were a normal fact of life for most. But not my family, and especially not my dad. My father is a devout Christian, firm in his beliefs, and also an animal expert. He's worked at his job for almost 20 years and deals with wild animals on a daily basis. Anything from porcupine to deer to black bears and coyotes. He has a gift with animals that seems almost uncanny, and he cares deeply for every animal that he comes in contact with. The only time I've seen him cry is when an animal in his care has died. The other thing you have to know about my dad is that working this job for so long has made him incredibly observant, quick on his feet, and most of all, realistic. He doesn't believe in all this woo-woo crap. His words, not mine. This is why I believe the story is much more terrifying coming from him. He told it to me casually, like a normal work story. He was driving his work vehicle home and saw a group of deer in his field to his right. He slowed down to observe and noticed immediately that one of them was bigger than the others. He goes on to say that it was way bigger than he would consider normal size difference from the other deer. He tells me that as he drove away, he watched the bigger deer stand on its hind legs and walk like a human. I'm sorry? His explanation? It must have been a bear with mange, a condition caused by parasites that make animals itch and lose their fur. And he was seeing things, but he could have swore that it had antlers. He laughed it off, but I didn't. I'm not laughing either, because I'm imagining exactly what it is, and I don't like it. There are 3 reasons that story makes me so nervous. Bears do not hang out with deer like that, and often don't survive mange long enough to lose all of their fur, or at least enough for my dad to mistake it as a deer. 2, in Appalachia, there's a cryptid called the not deer. It's known for being bigger than regular deer and having forward-facing predator eyes, and is often observed on its hind legs. And 3, my dad has never, and I mean never, doubted himself the way that he did when he explained it as a bear. He's incredibly confident in his job and his abilities to observe and identify species of animals. Plus, I'm confident that if he saw a bear with that much mange, he would have stopped to help it. I'm convinced that he saw something that didn't align with the truth he keeps in his head and makes him rewrite the story to save him the fear and the belief crisis. I hope this one is spooky enough for you. If not, I have more than one encounter that I'm willing to share while I'm safe on respected land, including several of my own not deer stories. Thanks for reading. Signed, Animal Expert in Appalachia. There is truly nothing that I love more than a spooky Appalachia story. And I firmly believe that the reason that your dad doubts it is exactly why you say it. He can't make it make sense in his mind because he doesn't believe in the woo-woo crap, as he calls it. But if you know that a bear wouldn't hang around with deer like that, he has to know that they wouldn't hang around with deer like that. But then again, sometimes coping means that you are going to try any and everything that you can to make sense of what you're seeing or what you think you see. What do you guys think? Do you think that he really thought that it was a bear with mane? Or was he seeing the not deer? Rated on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least scary, creepy, spooky, 10 being the most. See y'all at the next episode.
Have you noticed how we've not built any new cemeteries? Like any city, town you go to, they still have the same cemeteries they've had for hundreds of years. And people pass away all the time, yet these cemeteries never seem to fill up. There are always open plots of land where you can bury someone. So where are the bodies? Where are they going? What's happening to them? I've got this interesting theory that I've heard. Now, in the 1970s, there was this movie called Soylent Green. Now, Soylent Green was this movie starring Charlton Heston, and it was about this futuristic city in which the world had become overpopulated. They had destroyed the oceans, they had destroyed the earth, and times were really rough. And none of the people in the city could afford to buy any groceries. They couldn't afford just the normal things we get every day at the store. So in order to keep them from starving, they were sold this very cheap stuff that was made in the factory. It was like a squared cracker or ration, and it was called Soylent Green or yellow or red. And the people, because they were hungry, because they were starving, they would protest like every day. They would go out into the streets and have these huge protests. But these trucks would come around and they would pick them up and take them away. And all these people were like disappearing. So Charlton Heston's character, who is this detective, he starts investigating this mysterious case, which leads him to the factory where they make this Soylent Green. And what he discovers is that the Soylent Green is made from humans. And when you kind of look around now, right, the same things are happening that happened in that movie, right? We are slowly destroying the oceans, the earth. Groceries have become unaffordable. They are now a luxury to most. And you wonder, the foods that we're getting that are so cheap that we're able to afford to buy, the only stuff that we can eat, what is it made of? Now, I'm curious what you think. Why do you think we are not building any new cemeteries?
Imagine moving into your dream home only to find out the previous owner was a witch. That's exactly what happened to a 26-year-old woman named Emily. Back in 2018, Emily had just bought a small countryside cottage. It wasn't expensive. In fact, it was really cheap. The estate agent told her the previous owner had passed away and the family wanted the house sold as quickly as possible. Emily thought she'd found the bargain of a lifetime. I mean, who wouldn't for that cheap? For the first few weeks, everything seemed normal. She settled in well, she loved the countryside, everything about it just seemed lovely to her. Until one evening she noticed a small wooden door hidden behind an old wardrobe. She was certain it hadn't been there before. Curious, she forced it open, and inside was a tiny room, covered from floor to ceiling, with strange symbols burnt into the walls. There were shelves filled with glass jars, animal bones, black candles, and dozens of old notebooks, written in a language she couldn't understand. Right in the middle was an old photograph. It showed the previous owner standing outside of the house, the same exact house she had bought. But she wasn't alone because behind her stood a tall shadow with no face. Emily laughed it off, trying to convince herself it was all part of some old superstition. Then things started happening. Every morning, objects she would put away would appear back inside the hidden room. Doors opened by themselves at exactly 3:17 in the morning. And it wasn't just that one night, it was legit a repetitive thing that kept going on and on and on for days. She'd also hear footsteps walking slowly across the attic. One night, she finally worked up the courage to look. The attic was empty. As she turned around, she noticed fresh footprints covered in black ash leading back downstairs. The next morning, she packed her belongings and left the house forever, despite not even being in that house for a month. Months later, another family bought it. The hidden room was never mentioned in the estate listing. And according to local rumours, every family that has lived there since has moved out within a year. Would you stay if someone offered you that house for completely free?
Hi, welcome to my series where I tell your paranormal experiences. If anything unusual's happened to you, you can comment below and you might see it on my TikTok. This one, I'll try and tag her in the caption because it didn't let me reply to her comment with a video. I don't know why. Well, she said she goes to Indonesia every year to visit her family. I think that's what she said. Her grandma, who has passed away, comes to visit her. Like, her grandma's ghost comes to visit her every time she goes there and tells her things that are going to happen. Literally tells her premonitions, like, this is going to happen in your life, this is going to happen. And every single time, she's right, and they happen. Anyone else experienced anything like this? I've never experienced this in my life. I think that's so scary. What if she tells you something that you hate and you don't want to hear? Like, it's really scary. Would you try and change it, or would you just accept it? I feel like that could depress people. Like, if someone came up to me and they were like, Emily, this is going to happen next week, and it was like the worst thing, and you know you can't do anything to control it or change it, what do? It's like a more serious version of that, So Raven.
My husband has been cruel since I told him I was pregnant. I remember excitedly showing him the pregnancy test because it was like our dreams were finally coming true, but his face was expressionless, and he said to me, so you are useful for something. He had never said anything like that to me, so I chose to believe that he was just nervous because after all, we'd been trying for some time to have a child, but I was wrong. That was just the start. In the months that followed, he started what I think is called negging. I don't know if that was his intention, some mean emotional manipulation. I just know that he was overflowing with horrible comments about my appearance. And I asked him to stop because, you know, his words hurt me. And he would just laugh and say that he was telling the truth. It didn't stop with that, because then came the threats. The one that sticks out the most was at the dinner table. He continued to refuse to eat what I made for him. He was very vocal about how disgusting my food was, and he even held up a steak knife and pointed it right at me and said, "You're lucky." He said I was lucky I was with child. And that's when I started having the thoughts. I mean, it's not so bad to just think about killing your husband, is it? It was just daydreaming. Nothing more. I realized that killing someone isn't so hard. You know, there's 1,000 ways to kill someone. No, what I like to think about was getting away with it, because that is the hard part. It essentially boils down to disposing of the body, because that's how everyone gets caught, you know? Dig a hole in your backyard, your neighbors saw you, caught. Dump the body in the woods, they track your cell phone location, caught. Without a body, there's no case. You did it. I thought I had the perfect plan. See, my husband doesn't have any other family, so he wouldn't be missed by anyone except me. And my husband had once purchased a giant 55-gallon barrel. I mean, that was a good place to put a body. So you just fill it with chemicals you bought with cash. Just wait long enough for everything to dissolve, and then you just dump the goo in small batches in a big rushing river. The night that my husband slapped me, I decided that daydreaming might not be enough. So I went into the garage to check the barrel, you know, just check it, get my head around maybe if it would work. I popped the lid off, but the barrel was full of something. Like, there was a mystery white powder, and it was so heavy. So I grabbed a rag off of his workbench and tried to dust away some of the powder. Just below the surface, I found something solid. And after brushing some more, I saw my husband's lifeless face staring back at me. Suddenly I heard from behind me, "You aren't supposed to see that." Startled, I faced the thing that looked like my husband, and it said, "No matter, you've been useful enough." Then the baby started kicking furiously, but no, I realized it hurt too bad. It was like clawing.
Snacks in hand, the vibe is set, and once I start, don't eat too much because you gotta stay fine. But come on, besties. Yep. If you didn't notice, I'm a little excited. The wife has come forward. I repeat, the wife has come forward. So for context, I've received a very angry message not too long ago about a husband whose wife bought my ebook and left him, saying my ebook is fake and I'm scamming people and I'm breaking families, blah, 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 blah. The wife came forward. First of all, she says she's glad that I didn't show the husband's message, and she also would like to stay anonymous, but she was going to be regardless. But bestie, grab your snack, grab your gardening essentials, and sit the fuck down. So let's call the wife Jane for the sake of the story. Let's call the husband bitch ass nigga. Nah, I'm just playing. Let's call him Bob. So Jane and Bob were only married for 2 months. But let's backtrack a little bit. So they met about 3 years ago, right? And they dated for about a year. Throughout their relationship, everything was fine. But now looking back at it, now 3 years later, it wasn't fine. But at the time, it was fine. When she met him, she had graduated college. She had an amazing job. She had a Benz. Even had like a small social media following because she also wanted to be a content creator. As of right now, she does have a good amount of following. That's why she wants to stay anonymous. She does not want her personal life to get into, her social media because that's her private life. And I respect that because y'all know me. I'm real private with my personal life. Anyway, when they met, she had all her ducks in a row. No G. However, when they started dating, things started to go wrong, right? She wasn't doing really good with her job. She actually ended up losing that Benz that she had. But that's later on in the relationship. However, it seemed as though at the time, she met him at the perfect time because right after she met him was when things started to go wrong. However, he had it. He supported her. She didn't have to worry about nothing. I'm going to try not to give too many details because, like I said, she does have a following and I feel like y'all might guess. So, it was the opposite. At the beginning of the relationship, she had it all and kind of, lost it throughout. And he didn't really have too much, but gained so much throughout. And you know what? That happens sometimes. You meet somebody, and they're supposed to be for you, you feel me? They support you in your hard times, Cool. So, they date for about, a year. And, things are going okay. They meet each other's parents, his parents likes her parents likes him, except for her grandma. Her grandma did not like him. She had absolutely no reason not to like him. She just didn't. She tolerated him because that's her granddaughter's soon-to-be husband. Grandma would still be telling her, whenever they argued, grandma would still be telling her, hey, keep your options open. Just don't, keep your options open. She would always tell her grandma, Ma, why don't you like him? He's literally perfect. My parents love him. Do you see how much he supports me when I was going through it? He made sure I didn't need for anything. Grandma would literally just tell her, hey, just make sure you don't rush because you never really know someone till you know someone. Which was actually crazy coming from her grandma because her and grandpa met and got married 4 months after they met and they're still together till this day. So she really wasn't trying to hear that from grandma because you literally got married really fast. Anyway, about a year of them being together, he's now asking her for a baby. He's let's have a baby. We're good now. We're good. Your financial situation is a little better, which it was. However, it wasn't better than him. He would constantly ask her, let's have a baby. And she would constantly tell him, yo, no baby until Ringy. He was on the birth control shot. But whenever she would have to go and renew it, he would literally beg her, no, let's just have a baby. And she would tell him, you're begging me for a baby. Why don't you just give me the Ringy and then I'll give you the baby? What's so hard about that? So he's all right, okay, bet. I give you the Ringy. You're going to give me the baby. She's yes, you give me Ringy, you get baby. Said bet. So about a year and a half of them dating, he pops the question. She is over the moon. She's happy. Oh my gosh, she's engaged. She's gonna be a wifey. And 2 months after he pops the question, she was due for her depot shot renewal. He said absolutely the fuck not because you told me if I give Ringy, I get baby. I give you Ringy, you give me baby. Well, yeah, but we're not married yet. We're still just engaged. It's not really official. He's I'm not trying to hear that. You're not getting that renewed. He's yes, I am. We're not married. We're engaged. After we're officially married, you get baby. He was really passionate about this, right? She couldn't understand. She knows some, niggas, they want to be fathers. They want a family and stuff like that. But it was just he was very, very passionate about this. Why? She said that to him. She's why do you want a baby with me so bad? It's not we're never going to have a baby, but why are you trying to rush us to have a baby so bad? And of course, he's that's because I want a family with you so bad. I already told you since the day I met you, you're going to be my wife and we're going to have beautiful kids and you know. Something didn't sit right with her. However, she gaslighted herself. She's you know what? Maybe he really do just love me that much. Jane is smart and Jane stands her ground. She went and got that depot renewed because what do you mean? He was pissed. When I mean pissed, he was pissed the fuck off. She got to see a side of him that she ain't never seen before. Like, he was angry. He was cursing her out. All because she decided that she was going to renew her birth control. He's going around telling each and one of her family members that she don't know how to keep her word. Basically spun it to where she seems like she's the bad guy. Some of her family members agreed with him, but then some of her close cousins were also starting to be like, why does this nigga want to have a baby with you so bad? Usually men want kids. Like, of course they want kids with the person that they love. However, men are usually like, let me get my shit together first, and let me get this first, and let's get married first, and this before we have a baby. But this nigga not trying to hear none of that. Ooh, eventually, things calmed down. He apologized for the way he spoke to her and stuff like that. They got back good. However, Grandma heard about this. Grandma was not happy. Grandma sat her down and told her straight up, you gotta leave that man. And of course, she's like, Grandma, I can't leave him over this. Like, we're engaged. The main one that be saying marriage is not easy, marriage is hard. This is part of that's the process, right? Like, it gets hard. I'm like, baby, I'm telling you, leave that man before it's too late. They had like a really deep, conversation, and part of the conversation stayed with her. However, he is still the man that's doing everything right, She still don't have to worry about a fuck thing with him. So it is hard to just leave a man, just because he got angry, So ultimately, she stayed. And a little bit after that whole situation, she stumbled upon my page. And of course, she got down the rabbit hole and she just fell in love with my page and my stories and stuff. Immediately, she was hooked. But I had nothing to do with what she had going on. I just want you to remember that. So, wedding planning is happening. A whole lot of exciting stuff is happening. But he's still not letting up on having that baby with her. But she's also still not letting up on, you're gonna get the baby when we're married. Eventually, he kind of just gave up on trying to push the situation. Because he know he gonna get the baby regardless. You just gotta wait. Boom. So, like a year and some change after the engagement, they get married. Like a month after they get married, she's supposed to go and renew, her Depo shot again. But of course, she's like, I'm not going to do that. Because this nigga been fiending and I've been going against his will this whole time. But really, it was Grandma. Grandma kept telling her, get that shot. Stay on birth control, girl. Stay on it. Like, even 2 months before the wedding, she was supposed to go get it renewed. And she actually had decided, she was just like, hey, I get married in 2 months anyway. So what the hell? Like, I'm not going to do it. Grandma was like, go do it. Let's backtrack just a little bit. Right before the wedding, Jane has an interesting dream. So, in her dream, she was prepping for her wedding, of course, and her boss came up to her and was like, hey, you can't marry this guy. She was just like, what? Like, what do you mean? And of course, her boss was invited to the wedding in real life. Her boss basically told her, hey, I really care about you. I really don't want you to marry this guy. You cannot marry him. And she basically tells the boss, what an odd thing to say. You don't even know him. How are you going to tell me not to marry him? The boss says, because this is deeper than marriage. This is about your destiny. Her boss leaves her office and walks away. And when she tries to follow the boss to figure out what he's talking about, he disappeared. He's gone. And then she woke up. I'm almost running out of time, so coming for part 2. This is part 2. I have my snacks in my hand. If you want to catch up, go back to part 1. So, she has that dream, right? And it's a really interesting dream. So, she wakes up from it like, what? And again, she had been following me for a good amount of time, by this time. And she knows, dreams like this usually mean something. And she started thinking about the fact that her grandma don't like this man. She starts to think about a lot. But ultimately, she ended up gaslighting herself again. She's like, maybe it's just pre-wedding jitters and stuff like that. Everybody gets cold feet. I think it's I don't know. By this time, I had already dropped my ebook, right? And I was already making videos about the reviews on them. And so after that dream, she decided that she was going to get my ebook. Not because she wanted some kind of revelation, but because 1, she wanted to support me. Thank you, girl. And 2, she wanted to kind of, in a way, bless her marriage. So she was going to get the ebook, do the fast as a way to start her marriage when she gets married in a perfectly, good way. So, boom. Despite everything, despite the dream, despite Grandma, she got married. But before she got married, she told him about my ebook. She told him about me. Like, he knows that she'd been following me. And she also said that if anything, he tried to like downplay me all the time. Like, always say like, oh, she's just some girl from the internet. Like, she don't know what she's talking about. Like, you know. And she would just take it as like, well, you're not into that type of stuff, so you wouldn't really understand. But when she got the ebook, she told him about it. So she was like, hey, I'm going to do this fast, like the first 3 days that we get married. Can you please do it with me? He's like, no, I'm not doing that. And she basically told him like, hey, look at the book. Like, I understand you don't believe in that stuff and you don't whatever, but take a look at the book. It's actually based off of God. And I think it'd be great for us to start off our wedding like this way. Like, let's do it. So she kind of like shows him the ebook. He starts reading the ebook, y'all. She says the moment he starts reading the ebook, his eyes starts widening and he's like, you don't need this shit. You need to stop buying shit from people on the internet. And he goes to try to delete the book out her phone. So she like snatches her phone from him. Like, what are you doing? I spent money on this. Like, what? Why are you trying to delete it? If you're not into it, that's cool. But like, I'm into it. I like the book. And this turns into a big argument because now he's on the top of time. Like, I'm your husband now and you need to fucking listen to me. I'm supposed to be leading you. So if I'm telling you to delete this fucking book, delete the fucking book. I'm trying to protect you. And she's like, protect me from what? God? Like, ain't nothing but prayers in this book. And he's like, no, this is witchcraft. This is witchcraft. You don't know about this stuff. You think that I don't know about this stuff, but I do know about this stuff. And this girl is selling you witchcraft. And you're supposed to be a godly woman. You ain't supposed to be doing witchcraft. So she's like, it's fasting with Bible verses. How is this witchcraft? Ooh. Very important part that I forgot to say. This is happening like a week before the wedding. I know I already said they got married, but this conversation, when she got it, like, because she wanted to do it like the first 3 days into the marriage to kind of like bless the marriage. So she came up with the idea like, you know, a week before the wedding. And so they're having this discussion like a week before the wedding. It turns into a whole fight or whatever. And ultimately they ended up making up and stuff like that. And they got married. But he still really wanted her to delete that book. And she was not having it. So just in case, she saved the book on her iPad and on her laptop. And rightfully so, because the morning of her wedding, because she wanted to start the fast and stuff like that, right? The morning of her wedding, she went to her phone to find the book and she could not find it. The nigga went through her phone and deleted it. Now it's the morning of her wedding and she's irritated. She's supposed to be getting married to this man, but she's mad at this man the day that they're supposed to get married. But ultimately, she like sucks it up. She gets married to him. She had to be all smiles. She has to still marry him. But like on the inside, she's like, bro. But then again, she gaslights herself. She's like, well, he's just trying to lead. He's trying to be a man. And if he does know what he's talking about, he don't follow Blizzy. So he don't know that she not like that or stuff like that. So he really just trying to protect me. So she sucks it up. She gets married to him. Cool. So the day of the wedding is the first day of her fasting. They're going on their honeymoon for about 2 weeks, right? But their flight to the honeymoon doesn't leave for another 2 days. So she timed it perfectly fine. So when they went to their honeymoon, she wouldn't be fasting anymore. She'd be done with the fasting. So boom. First day of the wedding, she does the fast. The wedding happened. Everything's cool. Except, remember how I said she has a good amount of following on social media. He keeps asking her like, are you posting anything? Are you posting anything? But she basically told him like, no, I don't really want to post this right now. Like, I'll post that we got married maybe like a week later after I done got like all the jitters out and stuff like that. I'll post after. And so she ended up asking him too. She was like, hey, can you not post right now? I just want to enjoy our moment, like in this, you know, moment in time, in real time right now. And then we'll post about it after. And then he got mad over that. He was like, why won't you post that we got married? Are you trying to hide us? She's like, I just said I'm gonna do it. I'm just not gonna do it right now. I want to take in the moment first. But really deep down, something was telling her not to post that. So that turned into another argument. And it wasn't like a big argument, but it still turned into something. And so at this point, she's really sitting here thinking like, yo, we've been fighting a lot lately. But maybe it's because it's wedding jitters. Couples fight. You know, all the wedding stress and stuff like that. She's gaslighting herself yet again. I just realized the sound was kind of muffled this whole time. So boom. Day after the wedding comes and she's still, you know, doing the fasting. And he's just like irritated with her because she's fasting. So she's like, I understand you could be mad at me because I got the book or whatever, but why are you mad that I'm fasting? Fasting is never a bad thing. Why are you so irritated with me because I want to fast? Like, and so at this point, alarm bells are like ringing. The red flags are like this in her face, right? And her grandma is like constantly calling her to check up on her. So that night of the second day of the fast, he tries to have sex with her. And she wasn't with it. I don't know, she wasn't feeling it. She kind of just told him, hey, we're going on our honeymoon in 2 days. I got you. When we get to our honeymoon, we're going to have all the fun in the world. But for right now, like, I just don't really feel like it. And he gets angry with her yet again and tries to remind her that they are now husband and wife, and also remind her that now she owes him a baby. And she's like, I know that. I know. Like, I'm allowed to not feel like doing it right now. Like, now the good thing about this is she vents to her grandma about like everything. Not like everything, but if it's something that's like very questionable, she'll tell her grandma. And grandma told her like, yo, I told you not to marry this man. Basically, like, she told grandma about the argument, about the sex argument. And grandma was like, I told you not to marry this man. It's not too late. You can get an annulment. Grandma's like, if you're worried about somewhere to stay, you can come to my house, baby. Like, you're always welcome to my house. You could come live with me, like, until you get yourself together. Just please. And at that point, it wasn't really just grandma. You know how I told you the cousins was kind of like started side-eyeing him too? And it seemed like her parents kind of started to side-eye him, but it's kind of too late for them to say something, because it's like now you're showing a whole different side that you never even showed. So boom, the day before they were supposed to leave for their honeymoon, her last day of the fast, she's kind of desperate at this point. So the fast started as a way to like bless the marriage, but by the third day, she's like so overstimulated that she's now dedicating to the third day of fasting to asking God for clarification, because she's now having doubts. And she's still kind of gaslighting herself, but she's like giving it to God, because that's what I put in the ebook. She literally said to God, like, hey, I don't know about this. Like, I don't know if the devil is trying us right now. I don't know if there's like bad juju coming for us, if people are sending bad juju towards us, but like we just got married and things are not looking good. And I don't think this is how marriages are supposed to start. She basically told God, like, I feel very confused and there's been like a lot of red flags, kind of, but she's not sure if it's red flags or she's just like overthinking it. She journaled about it, like I said in the book and everything like that. Cool. She does her fast that day. Now, mind you, he's still irritated with her because she's fasting. So the next day comes, they're all packed. They head to the airport to go on their honeymoon. I'm, again, almost running out of time. So go to part 3. I'm sorry. So this is part 3. So if you want to watch part 2 and 1, just like go watch them. So they're all packed. They're ready. They're heading to the airport, right? They're at the airport and he's being like super nice. He's so excited. He's calling her his wife. He's being so cute. He's buying her drinks at the airport. He's telling her how he can't wait to spend the rest of his life with her. And she's feeling pretty good. You know, she's feeling good. She had the prayer for clarification and stuff like that. Like, you know, the last day of fasting. And she's like, or maybe this is God clarifying that everything will be okay, because he's being like super nice. And he's telling her he can't wait to start their families. And she reminded him like, well, I still got 1 more month left on the shot, but after that, I'm not getting it renewed. We could start our family. And she was hesitant to even tell him that because she thought like he would get irritated, but he didn't. He didn't get irritated. He was like, he doesn't care. They're married now. So that means they're going to start their family, the family he always wanted. Cool. So they're at their gate and she decides, I'm going to go get something to eat. And he's like, hey, take my card, go get you something to eat. So on her way to get her something to eat, one of her supporters sees her at the airport. And she's like, oh my gosh, are you so-and-so? And she's like, yeah. She's like, oh my God, I love your content. Can I please get a video or a picture with you if that's okay with you? She's like, yeah, of course. So she takes a picture with the supporter. She makes a couple videos with the supporter. And she's like chatting it up with the supporter and stuff like that, giving her advice, all of that good stuff, right? Now, mind you, she still hasn't gone to get the food yet. So as she's talking to the supporter, she's like, hey, I was on my way to get some food. I'm really hungry, so I'm going to go ahead and get my food. And the supporter's like, yeah, let me come with you because I'm paying for your food. Actually, this happened to me one time, and it was just like the funniest, most shocking, awkward thing ever. Like, so anyway, that's not about me. I done forgot to stop the recording. Anyway, so the supporter's like, I'm paying for your food. Let's go. So she tells the supporter, no, you really don't have to pay for my food. I actually got my husband's car, so it's really on my husband. And so she was basically like, hey, what do you want? I got you. It's on my husband's car. And the supporter, who obviously followed her, is like, husband? You got married? She's like, yeah, but don't tell anybody. I'm not ready to tell the internet yet. And the supporter's like, absolutely, of course. Shh. So they go to the food place, right? And she orders the food. The supporter orders their food. And she was a really nice supporter. That's why, she kept talking to the supporter. They actually, really clicked because the supporter also wanted to, do content. So she was, helping her. So as they're sitting there waiting for the food, they're talking. And the guy that was taking their order, he was on FaceTime with, one of his friends. You know how we be sometimes. We be at work, but be on FaceTime, but we just got our AirPods in. So it was one of those situations. And so he kind of overheard their conversation. And so he was like, ooh, are you famous or something? And the supporter's like, yeah, she's, super famous. I love her content. I just met her. This is, the best day of my life. And so the person on FaceTime heard the conversation and told the guy, ooh, who's famous? I want to see. And so the guy is like, is it okay if I show you to my friend? She wants to see who I'm talking about to see if she recognizes you. She's like, yeah, of course. I'll say hi and everything. So he pulls out his phone and, shows the, his cousin, Jane, and his cousin's face went. So Jane is like, you recognize me, don't you? And she's like, oh. And mind you, she's in the AirPods, so she says to her cousin, she's famous, right? And he's like, yeah, I guess. And she's like, did she just get married? And so the guy, the server, asked her, did you just get married? So she's like, how do you know that? I haven't posted that yet. So she was basically kind of trying to avoid it now. Now she don't want to see Jane no more. She don't want to talk to Jane no more. And Jane found that very weird because number one, how do you know that I just got married? And number two, you was just excited to see me. Now you're not anymore and you know that I just got married. So Jane is like, can I talk to her? Can you take her off the AirPods? Can I actually talk to her? And so she hears this on the AirPods. She's like, no, I don't want to talk to her. I don't want to talk to her. So the server is just standing there And the supporter's also sitting there what was that about? So the server's like, she really wants to talk to you. And the server's like, hold on, give me a second to Jane, and goes to the back. When he comes back with their food, right? But he comes back looking very disturbed and worried. So Jane looks at him and can tell. So Jane is like, what is happening? You gotta tell me if it's something bad. I need to know because I have a following, and so for my safety, I really would feel comfortable if I knew. And the server hesitated for a second, but then he was like, fuck it, I don't care, I'm gonna tell you. Y'all, sit down. Now, I didn't reveal the nationality of the husband for a reason, but it's about to be revealed now. So, the server is Nigerian. His cousin is also Nigerian, the one that was on the phone. Husband is Ghanaian. Jane is Black American. The server comes to Jane and he tells Jane that her husband had been doing witchcraft on her. He feels so bad that she has to find out right before her honeymoon, but he also feels like she's supposed to find out right before her honeymoon. His cousin didn't want to tell her, but he's gonna tell her. So here's the background. Before they got together, husband was already into witchcraft and all of that, right? When he spotted Jane, he saw Jane's destiny. He saw that Jane is supposed to be somebody big. And immediately, he wanted a piece of that. So he came and he talked to her and he started a whole, relationship with her. He was never supposed to marry Jane. That wasn't part of the plan because he already has a wife back in Ghana. He was only supposed to trap her with a baby to stamp the destiny witchcraft. But Jane refused, remember? She refused. When she refused, he tried to get her through sex multiple times, but Jane was protected. So when he tried to get her through sex, it wasn't working. So that's why he was so hell-bent on having a baby with her. But Jane was standing on business. She wasn't having it unless she was married. So he had to switch up the plan a little bit. He had to actually get married to her. And the first time that they have sex after they officially get married, it would have stamped the destiny swap thing. Because at that point, they did a covenant together, right? So the protection that she had wouldn't be as strong anymore. Now, I fucked up those plans because she done went and got my ebook and decided to fast when they were supposed to have sex. So the sex got postponed until honeymoon. Now, about my book. When she got my book, he was very, very upset because I know what the fuck I'm talking about and it's gonna fuck up his plans. Which is why he told her that my book was witchcraft and he deleted it out of her phone. Which also explained the dream that she had about her boss saying it's about destiny. Which also makes sense because if you guys remember in the first part, when she started dating him, she started losing everything that she had. He started gaining. Which is why he was so against her doing the fast. Because you know, one thing about a fast is going to break all kinds of covenants and any type of spiritual whatever. And the reason why the cousin of the server knows was because she was the one doing the work for him. They know each other. He's Ghanaian. She's Nigerian. She's a voodoo priest. She does this. So he came to her about it. She's been doing the destiny swap work that he's been asking for. So when she started doing the fast, he got really mad at her. He sent himself the ebook, went back to the cousin, basically telling the cousin, like, what can we do about this? She's doing this book. What can we do about this bitch? Talking about me. She's fucking my plans. These Haitians always talking shit. And when she looked at the book and she looked into me, she wanted no parts. She wanted no parts. She told him, I'm gonna do what it do when it comes to your wife, but I'm not messing with this girl. I know that's the fuck right. I be telling y'all to stop playing with me. I know what I'm talking about. I'm protected, which is why I want to protect y'all. Let me calm down. So the servant tells Jane, listen, my cousin is into that kind of stuff. That's my cousin. That's my blood. But I'm not. I'm a Christian and I'm into God. So I'm going to tell you, do not go on your honeymoon with that man. Don't do it. Go back right now. And just like that, she got the clarification she asked for on the last day of the fast. And the supporter is just sitting there getting all the tea like, she starts crying at this point. And I'm almost running out of time yet again, so go to part 4. But I promise I'm going to do it right now. I promise, okay? Okay, I love you. So this is part 4. If you want to catch up, go back to all the other parts. I think this is probably like the longest story I told. Anyway, so she's bawling, she's crying at this point. She's at them people airports with her supporter next to her, just crying. And so the server's like, baby, please do not marry that man. Do not. I'm sure like you've probably been getting signs before and stuff like that. But I'm telling you, do not get on that plane. Do not go marry that man. Your destiny is at stake. Not marry. Y'all know what I mean. So as they're having this conversation, Grandma calls her. So she answers the phone and she's crying. And Grandma's like, what's wrong? This is why I called, because I felt like something was wrong. I wanted to check on you before your flight too, but I low-key wanted to call because I felt like something was wrong. And Grandma was planning on asking her to not get on that flight too. So she can't even explain to Grandma everything that she just found out. She just told Grandma, like, don't worry, I'm not going with him. I'm coming to you. I'm coming to your house right now, Grandma. You were right. You were right. Now, she had left her suitcase with her husband at the gate, but she had her purse with her that had her wallet and all the important information that she needed anyway. So Grandma tells her, don't even tell him you're leaving, just leave. Don't worry about your suitcase, your clothes, leave it with him. He can have them. I'll get you new clothes. Just come to me. Come to my house. So the supporter is still sitting there like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. She was so sweet. She hugged her while she was crying. She gave her the biggest hug. The server started to apologize to her like, I'm so sorry to have to be the one to tell you this good news. Good news. I guess in a way it is good news, but you know. The server then starts crying too. But then the server's like, baby, Grandma told you to go. If you gotta go, you gotta do it now because you've been gone for a little while now. We've been talking about this. I'm sure he's gonna come looking for you. Go. The supporter's like, yeah, he's right. Let me walk you out. I can't walk you all the way out because then I have to do the whole security check thing, but I will walk you as far as I can. Grandma was already in the car on the way to the airport to come get her. The server told her, don't you worry about the bill. You don't even got to worry about the bill. Don't, take the food, girl. You need it. Go. And she tells him like, well, I wasn't going to pay for it anyway. It's my husband's card that I have. So the server's like, in that case, keep it. Go shopping. You take Grandma and y'all go shopping. The server's trying to make light of the situation, trying to get her to smile a little bit, which she did. She said in that moment, like, although she was finding out the worst thing of her life, everybody around her was just so loving and so supportive. And these are strangers. She don't even know these people. Anyway, she gets outside. She had to wait for Grandma to get there. And as she's waiting, he's blowing up her phone. He's texting her. He's calling her. He's like, they're boarding right now. Like, are you coming? Like, what happened? Are you okay? And Grandma's like, do not answer him. Do not pick up the phone. Don't even text him back. I'm going to pick you up. We're going to go to your house. You're going to pick up all your stuff. You're going to pack all your stuff up and you're coming to my house. She is like defeated at this point. So she stops sharing her location with him. Grandma picks her up. They go to the house. On the way to the house, Grandma calls her church people to meet her at her house so that when they get to her house, they all pray over her. Because when she got to the car, she actually ended up explaining everything to Grandma. And Grandma was like, I knew it. I knew it. Turns out Grandma had been having a whole lot of dreams about him ever since they even met. Which is why Grandma never really had a valid reason to not like him, but she's been having dreams. And if you're somebody with the gift of dreams, you know how that goes. You will have a dream about somebody and you know the truth, but it's like, it's kind of hard to explain to people because it's like, what are you going to say? I had a dream? People are going to think you're crazy, you know? Now, at this point, his parents are blowing up her phone. His parents are blowing up her parents' phone. And Grandma is telling everybody, do not engage. Don't pick up, don't text back, nothing. So now she's currently working on getting an annulment. She's staying as far away from him as possible because now that they're married again, there's a covenant. So it's a bit easier for him to do what he needs to do. However, she did do the fast. So she's good, baby. You're good. Baby girl, you good. Trust me, you good. And she also did end up doing the spiritual bath too. Only thing is now she's dealing with a whole lot of dreams, like nightmares. So obviously he didn't get on the flight. He went back home just to see that her stuff is gone. So at this point, she knows that she left him. He knows that she left him. And he was like crashing out. And part of his crash out was him sending me that message, which led to this story. And my discernment is telling me in a way he was trying to bait me. That's why if you see the video, I was about to show y'all like the text, but then something told me, no, don't show it. Even with baiting me, you can't get to me. You can't get to me. So till this day, he still has really no clue that she knows all of this. He's about to find out right now through my video. But by the time you see this, it's too late. So go ahead and sign off on that annulment or however it works. I don't know how it works. And leave that girl alone. You have a whole wife back home. You probably got kids back home too. So leave her alone. Her destiny is for her to be very successful and yours is to burn in hell. Anyways, guys, don't forget to go ahead and get your ebook. The link is in my bio. And also, not too much on wifey. I did see y'all comments a little bit. Think about it. She was getting witchcraft done on her, and that can really make you like, you know, if anything, I think she did really good. With having witchcraft done on her, her protection was actually really working because it could have been worse. Y'all know I be doing them love spell stories. It really could have been so much worse. So wifey, I'm gonna dedicate this next week specifically for you so I can get this physical book out so you can get you a free one and everybody else can finally have the physical version. I'm literally gonna start from scratch. I thought about it after this story time. I'm gonna start from scratch. I'm gonna add more stuff. It's gonna be good. I promise it's gonna be good. Just bear with me. And again, everybody that already purchased the digital version, you will get an email with a coupon to purchase the physical version. So you don't have to pay full price for this physical version since you already have, you know, the digital one. And this made me so happy that I even want to have a sale on the digital version right now. I ain't even gonna lie. Like I want more people to have it. So if y'all want a sale, let me know. I might have one. I'm feeling real good. Anyway, don't forget to let me know what you were eating in the comments. And don't forget to go over to my YouTube channel to watch my stories in long form. And don't watch nobody else's because they're making money off of me. Okay? I love you. Bye.
I'm going to go ahead and tell the story in the first person, but it did not happen to me. One of you guys actually submitted it, and just for a heads up or for a warning, this story is going to send you in a whirlwind of emotions. I've always been sensitive to the paranormal world. Growing up, I would always hear whispers and see things out of the corner of my eyes and have dreams that felt more real than when I was awake. My mom also shared like the same gifts, so her and I have always been able to connect in that way. About 4 years ago, I met a man at work who we will call Carlos. From the moment that I laid my eyes on him, I felt like he was the person that I had been waiting for. Very early on, we hit it off. He was extremely funny, hardworking, intelligent, and was everything I could possibly have asked for, especially being that I had been a single mom for many years. This literally felt like a godsend. But after a couple months, things completely changed. He became extremely controlling and insecure, and then I found out that he had a huge drinking problem, one that I wasn't aware of. Whenever he would drink, he would turn into a completely different person. A lot of times I would be staring at him and it was almost like there was no life behind his eyes, and his eyes would turn completely black, even though he had brown eyes. One night I ended up staying at his house for the very first time, and this is when I had one of the most terrifying experiences that till this day I have not been able to top. As I was laying in bed, I was suddenly awakened. When I opened my eyes, I could not move. His room was completely pitch black, but I could still make out the outline of his furniture. But it was all completely backwards. Like when the dresser was supposed to be over here, it was actually over here. The TV, everything was just completely backwards. And then I felt a presence. It was just standing there silently in his closet. Before I could even process what I was seeing, it started to speak and it yelled out, "Get out, you're not supposed to be here." It continued to say this over and over again. The anger that it had like in his voice is something that I can't even describe. I couldn't even like think to pray. A lot of times I would pray to try to get these things to leave me alone, but my brain couldn't even comprehend. Like I couldn't make out the words. Then whatever this thing was that was inside my boyfriend's closet started to walk out towards me. Then I felt this immense weight on my chest. I couldn't even breathe. And all I could think about was my boyfriend's name. So I started to yell out his name. Before I knew it, my boyfriend Carlos ends up waking up. He says that I was screaming his name in my sleep. The next morning, I decided to tell him that I just had a nightmare. I decided to leave out the part where I saw that man in the closet because him and I weren't at that stage in our relationship where we can just be completely honest with each other, and I didn't want him to think that I was weird. So I pretty much just told him it was a nightmare and I tried to forget about it. He then casually remembered that there was an old man that had passed away in his apartment years earlier, but I knew in my heart that what I experienced that night was not an old man. That was a D word. As time went on, things only got worse. I ended up even taking Carlos to get a limpia, or to get a spiritual cleansing done, because I really felt like what was going on with him was spiritual. But even that didn't help. It finally got to the point where I had to walk away from this because I knew in my heart that I couldn't save him, and I was a single mom and I needed to worry about my children. We tried to stay in touch for a little bit, but as time went on, we completely lost contact. And then I heard from mutual friends years later that Carlos had actually passed away. Before I even knew that he had passed away, I felt him around me. Mind you, Carlos and I had not spoken for years, but before I found out he had passed away, I felt his presence around me. Not in a frightening way, but more in a just being present type of way. Then one night he came to me in a dream. We were standing in line at an amusement park. Mind you, this was a date that Carlos and I had planned while we were together, but we never actually got to go to the amusement park. So in this dream, him and I were standing in line at this amusement park. He looked happy, peaceful. Then he pointed at a ranch that was out in the distance and said that he was okay and that the only reason why he was still around was because he had unfinished business at a ranch. I then remembered that his father actually owned a ranch in Mexico. I never felt his presence again. Sometimes I wonder if what I encountered in his bedroom that night was something that was feeding off of his addiction, or the cause for his addiction, being that Carlos was so heavily involved in alcohol. He was very low vibrational. So I imagine that this thing was loving it and just feeding off of it, and saw me as light and did not want me in that room, which is why it was yelling for me to get out, that I did not belong there. But what do you think? Was it sleep paralysis, or was it something much darker hiding in that closet?
Let's read a scary story submitted by a viewer. Welcome to the Creepy Cozy Cottage, where creepy and cozy meet. So grab a plushie because it's too hot for a blanket, and get cozy because it's creepy cozy time at the Creepy Cozy Cottage. Her name's Francesca, by the way, and this is Boo because she's a ghost. and she scares people. This is a new account, so if you don't mind, give me a follow so you never miss a story. This happened when I was at the age of 4 to 6. So me and my 2 parents moved into a cute little farmhouse. My dad was obsessed with farm life and wildlife. I remember one night I was fast asleep in bed when I woke up feeling like someone was stood over me. I opened one eye and saw a little girl peering down at me. I thought nothing of it at first because I was a kid and thought I was seeing things. The next few days were fine. Then it got late at night on a Friday, and I woke up to my toys making sounds. Then I saw the same girl, but this time she didn't have eyes. They were plain black. She let out a gut-wrenching, ear-piercing scream. I started to scream and cry. My mom came to my room asking what was wrong, and I told her. The next morning, I woke up to claw marks all down my back, like I had been in a lion's habitat. And that's when I could hear my parents talking. My dad said he saw a man dressed in farmer's clothing. The man was peering at him from inside my parents' closet each night. My dad said he smelt of cigarettes and alcohol. And when I told him about the little girl, his jaw dropped. He said he's seen her peeping out from under my parents' bed. That same night, my parents were going out, so my older cousin came to babysit me. We were watching a movie in the living room, and then I started to levitate in the air. My cousin said she saw the same man my dad saw, with black pus coming out of his mouth. Then all I felt was myself being thrown straight into the living room door. I got dragged across the ground. I felt so scared and I was screaming and crying. After that, a few months went by and nothing happened. My dad came down one morning telling my mom about having nightmares of this man setting fire to our living room. A few nights later, we woke up to our fire alarms going off. Our living room had caught fire, and my dad said he could see the man in the same spot. And then my mom told him that she had been seeing a little girl transforming into the man, laughing and taunting her. We ended up moving away, and whatever this thing was had attached to us. My parents ended up having to get a priest to help get the spirits away. Thankfully, it worked, but anytime I drive past that farmhouse, I still feel like he's in there, watching through the windows. That was terrifying. I cannot imagine going through that. Thank you so much for sharing the story. I will tag them below. And again, thank you for sharing that. I cannot imagine going through that. Oh my gosh. It gave me shivers multiple times reading that. And if anyone else has any scary stories they want to share with me, just send me a DM.
A couple of years ago, my partner and I went out to dinner. We ended up talking for hours, and on our way back home, we stopped to take a photo together. It was already around 2 a.m., and at first, everything seemed completely normal. We didn't notice anything unusual in the picture until we made it our profile photo. That's when several of our friends started commenting about something strange they could see in the background, something we hadn't noticed at all when we took the picture. I was at a family member's birthday party on my grandmother's property playing soccer with my cousins. One of them kicked the ball really hard and it flew over the fence into the neighboring vacant lot. Since I was the oldest cousin, it was up to me to climb over and get it. I grabbed my phone so I could use the flashlight because it was already nighttime. After climbing over the fence, I noticed there was an abandoned house on the property. One of its walls had partially collapsed, making it easy to see inside. As I shined my flashlight around, I took out my phone and managed to capture something in the darkness that I still can't explain. I visited a famously haunted hotel last October. I took a bunch of photos throughout and didn't really manage to capture anything. Except for this picture. It still sticks with me and freaks me out every time I look at it. A coworker of mine worked in the warehouse doing inventory during the late shift. As he walked through one of the storage aisles counting merchandise, he suddenly heard someone call his name. Feeling uneasy, he pulled out his phone and started recording. hoping to capture whatever was happening. He definitely captured something, but it's left everyone who has seen it with more questions than answers. This photo was taken by my friend's brother. According to him, the power had gone out that day, and it was around 10 or 11 in the morning. It's worth mentioning that my friend's house is very enclosed, so very little sunlight gets inside, leaving some rooms extremely dark even during the day. In the photo, you can clearly make out what looks like a face inside one of the dark rooms. When I first saw it, I asked my friend if the picture had been edited because honestly, it didn't seem believable to me. But he insisted that his brother took the photo and swore he never altered it in any way. And to this day, the property remains empty. This thing is supposedly a demon. I'm not sure if I'm the only one who sees it that way, but it definitely looks like a horned figure walking past. The video was taken outside of some abandoned office buildings, and whatever's in the video doesn't look human at all.
Might have known the story of real life boogeyman.
You got your late night snack? This is Last Thread Before Bed, episode 32. This is a little series where I read scary stories from Reddit before I go to bed, and I try not to get nightmares. So boom, let's get into it. Tonight's story is from the subreddit Ghost Stories thread, from user fun-term-5036. This encounter is what made me believe in ghosts. I just finished a play at this summer acting school in downtown Hollywood, and to celebrate the end of our play, one of my classmates invited all of us over to her mansion, which was in the Hollywood Hills. As soon as I stepped into the house, it felt abnormally cold, and I felt like I was being watched. The hair on the back of my neck felt like it was sticking up, and the vibe was off. Weird things happened while we were there, like the music randomly switching to creepy songs about murder, or with creepy titles that no one had touched. My castmate later on told us someone had died in this house and that it was haunted. We went outside by the pool, and I remember looking into the upstairs window to see this swing they had in one of the rooms, eerily moving back and forth by itself. But no one was up there, and I felt uncomfortable watching it. I wanted to go home, but at the time I wasn't old enough to have Lyft, and it was late, so my dad didn't want to pick me up, and no one else lived near my town, so I was forced to sleep over with a few other people. We had stayed up until 12 a.m. talking when suddenly the light turned off by itself. Everyone went dead silent, and the feeling of being intensely watched in the dark worsened, like a bitter cold woman was staring burning holes into my skin from the corner of the room. I had never felt like this before. The rest of the group huddled together on the couch in fear while I said fuck this and tried to run out of the room. Someone with some common sense. Luckily, a girl got up and grabbed me while another turned on a different light. We were all pretty uncomfortable after that happened, and we went to sleep shortly after. How? That night was one of the scariest nights ever. I hid under my blanket awake all night, counting down the hours till I could go home, afraid I'd see a ghost if I looked out of the blanket. Peering occasionally to see the time and hearing random thuds/noises in the unoccupied room above us. I did not see anything, but it was the most unsettling feeling I had ever felt like. It felt like someone else was in the room with us. Yeah, that sounds like Hollywood. Honestly, that was kind of just a basic ghost story, but I'm still a sucker for basic ghost stories, y'all. Follow for more scary stories.